welcome everyone here. For those people that don't know who I am, I'm Wendy Mazza, the city clerk. And I've given a little bit of given a handout to you, and I just want to briefly go over the handout. It has to do with the day of the election and your general sign regulation. Please make sure that you follow the sign regulation, because if I get complaints, the building inspector will be going around and he will be removing the signs. You cannot put the signs on any green space at all. It has to be on the person's property.
Yeah. We're not from Northampton. Is this going to apply to us? We're from Chicopee.
No. It's just the candidates from Northampton, that's all.
This portion.
This portion will.
Oh, okay.
So you have your sign regulation. Please make sure that the people that are making your signs follow it. And please make sure that you do not place the signs, as I said, on the green space, because they will go around and they will be removed. You have information inside your packet about absentee voting for the election. If there is a preliminary election, which would be September 27th, the last day that you can vote absentee is Monday before the 27th at 12 noon. That's the last time that you'd be able to vote absentee. If it's for the election, it would be November 7th. It's always the Monday before the Tuesday election. You will also see in here the polling locations. You have a list of polling locations for you. For those that are running at large, you'll be able to see your polling locations to have your workers be there as well. And you also have the observers, what they can and can't do. If you're going to have observers at the polls, I usually like to know in advance if you're going to do that, so I can at least warn the wardens, so they can at least make accommodations for you, whether so they can have chairs or whatever if you're going to be there to watch the election take place. You can't interfere with any of the voting process at all. That means you can't ask any questions. You can have a voters list. You have to pay attention and listen to the person being checked in, but you can't ask any questions, because if you interrupt the voting process, I will get a call, and then I'm going to have to come up there and ask you very nicely to stop it or remove you. So please don't do that. Also inside here, this is the ballot. This is how we mark our ballot in Northampton. You connect the head and tail of the arrow. We have an optic 3P Eagle machine, and this is what we use here in Northampton. So if you have people that are doing absentee ballots, it's really important that they connect the arrow. If they circle the candidate, it's going to go in the back bin as a blank, and then we're going to have to go back there to look for those ballots. So it makes it a lot easier for us if the person voting absentee pays attention on how they vote. This is what the machine looks like. It's a ballot that's scanned. The ballot goes in, the machine reads it, the ballot is counted as it goes through the machine. No results are given till the end of the night when the warden closes the polls, and they push print totals at the end of the night. If a person marks the ballot wrong, the ballot will kick back and tell you that you've either overvoted or you've undervoted on the ballot. So the voter has a chance to correct that problem. The voter has up to 3 ballots. They have 3 chances to get it right. After that, they're history, so to speak. So hopefully after the second time they'll get it correct. We usually try to walk them through what they've done wrong if they let us look at their ballot. Sometimes they don't want us to look at their ballot, and sometimes they'll put it through if it's blank, or if there's a mistake on it, they'll ask us to bypass the machine, and we press number 3, and it'll go through the machine, and it'll count whatever it can count, and that's it. We also have a voting machine. It's called an automark, and that's for the disabled. It is audio, and we don't have too many people use it. It's time consuming when you use because it has to go through each and every step on the ballot. We've had some people use it. Most people do not, but it is at the polls. We're required under the Help America Vote Act to have a machine there for the disabled, and we do. There's 8 of these at the precinct. There's one at every precinct, so a voter has the right to use this machine. And even a voter that is not disabled has a right to use the machine. If you wanted to try it out, you're certainly welcome to do so. So those are there as well. And basically that's all I have. Unless somebody has specific questions for me, they're more than welcome to call me at the office or stop by to see me at the office. I don't want to hold Jason up. I just wanted to touch base with you. but you're certainly welcome to come into the office and talk to me. And let's really have a great election this year. Let's all be nice to one another, and hopefully it'll be a pleasant experience. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jason Tate. I'm the public education person at OCPF, the Office of Campaign and Political Finance. What I do is I help maintain the website. I do our newsletters. We have a new Twitter account, so now I maintain that. My boss was a little resistant on the Twitter, but we decided to go for it. I do our studies, and I also do other public outreach, but I'm also the media spokesman. So I always like to say, you never want my name and your name in the same story, because it's never good. The reporters never call me for anything good, and I know because I'm a former reporter before I took this job. Just a little bit about our office, because you probably hear about it from time to time. We pop up in the Herald and the Globe and in the papers out here with the Republican and others. We're a very small office. We have 15 people in our office. On one side, we have a team of auditors, and they go through every campaign finance report that's filed with our office. Those are from your state reps, your state senators, political action committees, ballot question committees. You know, those state ballot question committees last year, talking about the alcohol sales tax and whatnot. State party committees and local party committees. In total, 2,600 committees file with us. Starting this year, mayoral candidates in cities between 40,000 and 100,000 file with our office now too, electronically. So those are all going to be online. As for the smaller cities, the cities below 40,000, you're not off scot-free as far as your exposure on the internet. The law was also changed to require clerks to take your report and post it on the municipal website if it exceeds a certain threshold, $1,000. Some clerks are just throwing them all up there for extra disclosure, because there's nothing wrong with more disclosure, and they don't want to have to sift through them, so they're just putting them all on there. What we have found since this started happening is the calls are going up, because people can see your reports now for the first time. They're not going to take the time a lot of times to come down to City Hall and then ask the clerk for the report and then go through it when you filed it on paper previously. But it's very easy now. There's very easy access to your reports now online. So hopefully some of the rules we talk about here today will help you perhaps sharpen your reports a little bit more than they have been in the past, and also make them cleaner. Now that they're online, we have seen an uptick in municipal level candidates downloading our software so they can type in the information, and it does all the math for you. It alphabetizes all your contributions. It's much easier, and I'll teach you how to do that, and how to download that, print it, sign it, and file it with your clerk. So anyway, back to the auditors. They go through every report and they look for red flags, excess contributions, corporate contributions, and other things. And they'll shoot off a letter to your state rep or your state senator if they find a problem. On the other side of the office, we have a team of lawyers. They administer the law, answer questions. If you have a question, you call up. You'll probably talk to a lawyer or myself. I'm not a lawyer, but I am able to answer questions. And we'll guide you through it. Or you can call your town or city clerk as well and ask them questions. We also have an IT department. They're very important because they accomplish our main goal, which is disclosure. They created what we call the electronic filing system, and that's where all candidates on the state level file their reports, and on the county level. Have any of you looked at that before? The electronic filing system? No?
I actually filed and it kept coming back. We were reporting right with the state race and with Ann Burke.
Oh, okay, yeah.
We kept sending it to her. She kept saying, like a month later, I'd get the report saying that, the letter from you guys saying that it still hasn't gone through. And we sent it like 3 or 4 times.
Are you running for municipal office now?
Now I am.
Now you are? Okay.
Yeah, and I've done it before. But
yeah, and that brings up another key point is no matter what we talk about here today, you might forget 90% of it. You can always call us. We take 40 calls a day. We keep a call log. People call us, we log your question, we log your answer, or the answer we gave, and it goes into our system so the director of the agency can see how we're answering questions, and our advice is consistent. So give us a call if you have any questions about the law or the technology. Speaking of my boss, he's pretty unique the way he's appointed. I don't know of any other position in state government where it's appointed this way. The head of the state Democrat Party, the head of the state Republican Party, the Secretary of State, and a law school dean appointed by the governor. Those 4 people get together every 6 years, and they appoint a director give him a budget, and say, run the campaign finance law. He doesn't report to anyone, he doesn't report to the governor, he just runs it for 6 years, then he's either up for reappointment or they get rid of him. He's currently in his third 6-year term now. Our focus, by the way, is disclosure. That's the thing we hear all the time at OCPF. Are they disclosing correctly? All the money that's raised and all the money that's spent, is it being disclosed to the public? That's what we're always looking for, whether it's on a state level or selectmen in a small town. That's what we're always looking for. Let's go over the ground rules a little bit. These ground rules, they apply whether you're running for governor, secretary of state, selectman, city council, mayor, and those involve public employees, public buildings, and public resources. And by the way, most of the headlines that you see concerning campaign finance violations are these 3 things right here, because it's easy. If a teacher fundraises for a campaign, there's a letter that's put out, the name's there, everyone knows this teacher from the school, and they're going to read the story, and it's just an easy headline for reporters, rather than dealing with electioneering communications and independent expenditures, those sort of these sort of cloudy issues. This is pretty straightforward. And the purpose of these rules, it protects public employees. If I'm a prison worker, if I work at a county lockup, and my job is to keep the prisoners locked up, not to worry about pressure from up on top to donate to the governor or donate to the sheriff. These rules help protect public employees from those sorts of political pressures. So public employees, what are the rules? As a public employee, public employees may not solicit or receive campaign contributions directly or indirectly. So who's a public employee? It's anyone who gets a paycheck from the state, county, or municipality. Your police officers, firefighters, teachers, the assistant professor at the community college, myself obviously, a state worker. Any of these people, if you get a paycheck from the state, county, or municipality, you're a public employee and you're prohibited from soliciting or receiving campaign contributions. So if you do have those sorts of public employees in your campaign, you'll find out on the next slide, they can work for you. They just have to stay away from the money. They're public employees 24/7 and nationwide, by the way. So what can't they do? Public employees may not solicit, verbal or written, collect money, or sell tickets to a fundraiser. And the solicitation is what we see most often. Do we see the verbal solicitations? No. We don't often hear about firefighters walking through town trying to collect money for a candidate. What we see are the written solicitations, because you're a teacher in a school, your friend is running for city council, you're at home on a Sunday and you're sitting at your computer and you know that your friend is having a fundraiser Friday. So you do the obvious good friend thing and you get on your Gmail account and you write an email that says, hey, Bobby's having his fundraiser Friday, he's running for city council. Make sure you get up there, it's only $50 a head. That's a public employee. And they solicited a written solicitation by email. 99 of those people who are getting the email, they're friends with Bobby. But then one person's mad at Bobby. So guess who gets the email on Monday? Our office. And then we open a case and do an investigation. So it's written and it's verbal. Yep.
What
Yes.
if somebody's a public employee for part-time, or that person can't solicit, so that's one thing. What if they're part-time? But the other thing is, if you're a public employee, you can't, 24/7 you can't solicit, but you can't ask for funds.
That's correct. You cannot ask for funds or receive them. And a part-time employee would be considered an employee, such as someone who might teach one class at the local community college. He or she gets a small paycheck once every month. They would still be considered a public employee and prohibited from fundraising. And it is 24/7 and even nationwide. If a public employee, let's say, wants to go to New Hampshire to collect contributions for Mitt Romney or Barack Obama, that would be prohibited under the campaign finance law. Massachusetts public employees are 24/7 nationwide and restricted from fundraising.
So you did your investigation, there was a few emails sent from the state treasurer's office last year in the governor's race, and it went to a bunch of state employees
Yes.
while he was working, or whatever. The email went to and he said sent it to the wrong email group. And so how long does your investigation last to prove,
Oh, each investigation lasts the amount of time it is required to find an answer and resolve the case. Could be up to 3 years, could be a few weeks. If it's right before an election, we will not resolve anything because we don't want to be a political football. We don't want to put out a letter. We don't want people calling us and saying, hey, this guy did this person did this,
Right.
and then, just so they can get the negative headline. So we always wait till after an election before we resolve these cases.
And
But-
the other camps will put out the negativity.
What's that?
The other camps will put out the negativity.
Yeah, they will. So in the state treasurer's race, I don't recall exactly what
Well,
that
the
situation
treasurer
was.
the state treasurer was running for governor,
Okay, yeah.
and his email went to all the state
Yeah.
employees.
Oh yeah, that was a headline. We didn't release it, but of course the people who referred them to us, I'm sure they called the Globe and the Herald,
Right.
and it ended up in a headline, I'm sure of that.
Excuse me. So, in terms of resolution, how long, you already said it could be up to 3 years, but what happens in the case of resolutions? Like,
Yeah.
what
yeah.
kind of punishment or what?
Yeah. Well, on average, the average term in a county lockup would be about 4 to 6 weeks. No, just kidding. No one goes to jail for this stuff.
I was already making a list.
No one goes to jail for this stuff. No, it is a criminal statute. If you read through, it's going to say a year in prison, $50,000 fine, and all sorts of scary, punishments. Usually, we resolve these things on our level with an informal public resolution letter. Our main goal is to educate rather than get the headlines. My boss likes to stay out of the headlines. We'll say, oh, some teachers raised $1,000 for your campaign. That's illegal. You purged that $1,000 to charity because those contributions were illegal. You've been educated on the issue. Let's move on. That's how we resolve most issues.
So even after an election is over, then you may go to this party somewhere down the line. You're going to say, okay, you got to pay back this or purge this $1,000. Well after the election, that's still what happens.
That's what usually happens. Yes.
Okay. And does the complainant? I'm not interested in whether the newspapers know it. I'm interested in whether the complainant knows that you did this. I mean, are they notified of your resolution?
They're notified. Yes, they get a copy of the letter, but the complainant's name is never revealed, so it always remains secret.
But they would.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was me, for instance, I don't care if it was my name or not. But you would send me something that says, "Hey, Mayor, this is what happened."
Yep, and it was resolved. And yeah,
Okay.
Plus, we put the PRLs on our website too. I'll show you where those are.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Contractors considered employees?
Yeah, the contractors, we take those by a case-by-case basis because our general counsel will look at it and say, does the contractor get benefits from the city? Does someone else name as ours? How many clients does the contractor have? And we take it on a case-by-case basis. The IRS rules?
For a full-time employee.
I'm not sure we use that standard.
Yeah, well, that's roughly what they consider.
Oh, that's what they do? Okay.
Yeah, they say if you-
Maybe we
if
copy
it's-
their standard.
If someone, gets a 1099, but they should be getting a W-2, those are the deadlines they use.
Okay, yep. Yeah, we look into it. We look at a specific circumstance and we'll give you a green light or a red light.
And just so everybody knows,
Yes.
I have been investigated by OCPF,
Yeah.
and we came back good.
Yeah.
But I asked to find out who it was that did it, and you guys really didn't reveal it. And you
Yeah.
got back to me in a timely fashion saying that it was all right.
Oh, that's good. Very good. Yeah, we're sort of like, the person from Iceland who called in, Whitey Bulger. We'll never know their name. Just like us, we'll never reveal the name of a complainant. If you are a public employee and you want to run for office, you can, but the same rules apply. You'd have to set up a committee on the side to do all your fundraising for you, which I heard is a real pain. But that is the requirement. You can run for office as a public employee, but you must set up a committee. And no public employees as treasurers. Oh, there is one exemption that's pretty unique. Elected official, if you're an incumbent, you can solicit and receive campaign contributions. Like Governor Patrick, the mayor of this city. Yes, sir.
Yeah, a clarification on that one.
Yeah.
If you're a public employee who is an incumbent, that doesn't trump that. You still can't raise...
The public employee status overrides the elected status, so
Correct.
you would still be prohibited from
Right.
fundraising. Right. And so what can public employees do? They can hold your signs, stuff your envelopes. If there's a popular person in town who happens to be a principal of a local school, they can have a meet and greet for you in their backyard with cookies and drinks, and as long as there's no fundraising, that can happen. They can do all those sorts of things. Any more questions on public employees? Yes.
Could someone else collect at that type of an event besides the principal?
We would advise against that because it is a public employee's home, and so it would be implied. The word indirectly is written into the law, and so the assumption would be that the public employee creates the funds. And so if you're at an event and a public employee and someone tries to give you a check, I get this question a lot. Do you have to go mum and say, oh, I can't take that or anything? You know, you can say, I can't take that here because, you know, the campaign finance, so I'll send it to my campaign address or something like that. You know, it can be done that way. Government buildings. It's similar to public employees in that fundraising is prohibited in buildings used for governmental purposes. That's this building, your senior centers, your libraries, any building that's used for governmental purposes. Fundraisers can't happen there. And like this gentleman mentioned earlier about the emails, solicitations can't happen in government buildings. We almost never see fundraisers in public buildings because people know the rules. But they don't always know the rules about soliciting in government buildings. And that's where we get some of our cases. Let's say you want to invite the mayor to a fundraiser. You're having it Friday night. Where do you send the invitation? To his office here at City Hall. That solicitation comes in the building and it's opened by a secretary who makes a copy, gives it to the mayor. That would be a solicitation in a government building used for governmental purposes and prohibited. That comes from a Supreme Court case from the 20s where they determined that the solicitation occurs even through the mail. And we've applied that to email now in this new century because that's what campaigns use now. They blast out 10,000 emails. 10 of them are to public email addresses. And they go into City Hall, someone opens it at their desk. We would consider that a solicitation in a government building. So we're asking all campaigns to scrub their email addresses of government email addresses. Their email list of government email addresses, yes.
Is that solicitation for funds only, or can do you consider soliciting, come to my event, speak at my event, when it's not specifically fundraising, but it might be...
I'm speaking of fundraising, but it's probably not a good idea to send those other communications into the buildings. Please help me out on my campaign. There's nothing specific in the campaign finance law that would prohibit that, but it would generate complaints and whatnot.
So, let me get this right. 2 years ago, we had a mayoral race. 2 years ago, the mayor, that we have currently now, had events in all of our senior housing as well as the senior center. Now, you can't tell me that one check didn't float through one of them rooms.
If it was billed as just a meet and greet, we wouldn't have a problem for it. But if a check did float through one of those rooms, that would technically be a violation of this section of the law.
So,
But
in other words,
that probably happens from time to time. Just like on my way here, I'm sure I, probably hit 70 from time to time, on the freeway. It's that, so there are degrees of violations there. But yeah, if that happened and we were to get, if we were to get a call and we asked and we saw that a check passed at the senior center, we would ask that campaign to purge that money.
70, maybe 75.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever hit 75. I'm very careful.
So by the way, it's not a freeway. The whole road.
So I got another question.
Okay.
When I was investigating, it was after the election, and it was by the losers, obviously, but we wouldn't report it ourselves. And you guys wouldn't give me the name. So you take that into consideration, sour grapes? You know what I mean? Somebody lost, and you know who the person is. You personally know because and you're not revealing to me. But if say it was the exact opposite person of the issue, and they reported to you because they spent thousands of dollars and I spent a couple bucks and I still won.
Our policy is we will review every complaint that comes to us, even if it's from a losing opponent.
And how do we provide you with enough criteria? I mean, what do we got to do? Have them on video?
No, you could. Someone could send us an email with as much information as possible, and someone from our office would look into it. I don't know exactly what steps, depending on the information, but they would look into it. A lot of times, sometimes we just call the candidates and say, hey, did you take a check? And they say, yes, I did. What do you want me to do? We say purge it. So that's how we resolve a lot of these things. It's just honesty through the investigation, or through the review. Oops, wrong way. Public resources. You don't see these a lot of times on the candidate level, and it's going to seem like common sense, but public resources can't be used for campaign purposes. In other words, if you have a friend who works in the office back here and you want 1,000 flyers, please don't ask them to make 1,000 flyers on the city's copy machine. But that would be the use of employee time and paper for campaign purposes. Or if you have a buddy who might work for the DPW, they shouldn't use the DPW truck to put your lawn signs up. We see this on ballot questions. That's basically, it's almost exclusively in a ballot question problem. There's going to be an override for a new high school. Half of the town wants it, half of the town doesn't want it. The superintendent wants it to pass. He types up a flyer, makes 1,000 copies. The teachers pass it to the kids in their backpacks, and then you have those public resources used for campaign purposes. Is a public resource a public building? It is, we say. But there isn't, so public buildings should not be used for campaign purposes. The exception is equal access. So if the mayor of a city wants to use the senior center for a campaign event and give a speech on the issues, that's okay. No fundraising, but a speech on the issues, that's okay. If the opponent can also use the senior center under the same circumstances. Right? This is your campaign finance report. Many of you will recognize it. This was done up on our Reporting 5 software that anyone can use. It'll do all your math, and it'll put everything in alphabetical order. Some important dates, the reporting period, right there, the beginning and ending dates. Those are very important. It's going to cover, you will file 3 reports during an election year. The pre-primary or the pre-preliminary report, the pre-election, and the year-end report. Those 3 reports should cover every day of the calendar year with no gaps and no overlaps. So those dates are important. I believe that, do you send those dates to the candidates? Your city clerks generally send you the correct dates so you can fill them in.
Certainly send you if you miss it.
And over here, this is going to be the summary information for the cover sheet of your report. The ending balance from your previous report, you would transfer the ending balance from your previous report, and it becomes the starting balance of this report. If you're just organizing this year, that number will be 0. Total receipts for the period, all the money that came in. Total expenditures, all the money that went out. And then your ending balance. This is also where you'll summarize your in-kind contributions and the liabilities, the bills that you owe and the debts that your campaign owes. So raising money. These are some of the general rules. You probably all know that the individual limit for the year is $500 per individual. You can receive that much money per individual per year. On your report, contributions of greater than $50 must be itemized with a name and address. Our recommendation is if you're using Reporter 5 software, you enter every name and address and the amount, regardless of what it is, even if it's $10 to $500. And the software will sift out the lower ones, and it will disclose the larger ones. The reason we ask you to do that is because if you had a backyard fundraiser a month ago and it was $20, and then you had another fundraiser and it was $40, that person went over the limit, $60 for the year, the $50 limit for the year, and their name and address must be disclosed to the public. If you fail to put in the name and address the first time for the first contribution, it may not pop up. Contributions of 50 or less do not have to be itemized and can be disclosed as a lump sum on your campaign finance report. All the contributions you receive that are over 50 must be in the form of a check or a credit card. No money orders and no cash. You can take cash contributions and money order contributions, but only up to $50. Political action committees, they can give to municipal candidates up to $500. And there's no limit on the total number of PAC contributions you can receive. This one's pretty important, the $200 limit. Any contribution of $200 or more must include occupation and employer. So when you read the stories in the newspaper where it says, Governor Patrick received $40,000 in donations from the biotech industry. The reason they know that is because occupation and employer is added. So it's not really from the company; it's always from the employees. But they call it, from the company.
It's the corporate. You can't get it from a corporate, but you can get it from
the individuals.
From the individuals of the
That's
corporation.
Right. That's right. And records must be kept for every dollar received. In other words, it's probably not a good idea to have a bake sale. Bake sales tend to be sometimes popular, but according to the campaign finance rule, if you sell Little Johnny 3 cookies for $1, you'll be required to get his name and address for your records, which you must keep for 6 years. Yes, sir.
So I have a big amount of money that I'm gonna transfer from a state campaign to a municipal, and we filed everything from the state, because there's a lot of money involved, through you guys, and via the software. And now, the city clerk in Hoyle says I can just file this piece of paper, because I've done it before, just this piece of paper.
That's correct.
So, but can I do it electronically now after I transfer the funds from?
Are you running for mayor?
No.
No, you're running for city council.
Yeah.
No, you would not. Once you change your purpose from state level to municipal level, you no longer have to file with our office. You're
But can I? That wasn't my question. Because we got the software.
We would switch it off, and then you would not file with us. And I don't think you even can file with us.
Oh, I can.
Unless, no, you would not file with us.
But I have to file with you when I transfer the funds from one campaign to the other.
It would be, yeah, well, it would be just a simple form. There would be no transfer. It would just be a one piece of paper that says, I was a state rep candidate, now I'm a city council candidate. You file it with us,
It was a little higher.
and then you're with the Holyoke clerk.
It was a little higher than that.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank
Okay.
you. That's
A little hard, yeah, a little harder than that.
The office is a little higher than that.
Yes.
I think I already know the answer to this, but I just want to be sure. Last campaign I was involved in, I noticed some of the offices for the campaigns had glass collection jars labeled donations, so people could just like throw their change from their pocket in. And I'm pretty sure the answer is no, that's not allowed.
That's not permitted.
Okay.
In the past, when we have found that candidates have taken in anonymous cash contributions like that, we ask them to purge it to charity. Sometimes it's a little amount, and sometimes it's a pretty huge
Can I
amount.
just make, and so Loretta, if people see that happening, then they need to contact me, because that's the only way that it's gonna get resolved, is if you contact me, and then I can go forward with it.
Okay.
I was aware of that, though.
Yeah, I just figured I'd make sure everybody knew.
Yeah.
I kind of knew. I had checked into
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
You said something that's not written up there. You said $50 and under cash is permitted, but up there it doesn't say. It just says 50, under 50 or over 50, but what about 50 on the nose?
50 on the nose, you can take a $50 bill. So 50 on the nose, cash is okay. So over 50, not okay. 50 exactly and below, okay. I got a little confused there for a minute. And this is what it will look like, your Schedule A receipts. And so Terry Brooks, he gave $60. We're going to disclose his name and address. From committee to committee, if your state rep wants to give to your committee because he likes you, he can. It's up to $100 limit.
That's it.
Yep, that's it, $100. From the committee, then he can give you a personal check for $500. You have your hand up? No. Okay. Orson Card, $200, vice president of Big Vault Bay. He hit the $200 limit, and so we disclosed his occupation and employer. We ask that you be as specific as possible with the occupation, vice president, rather than just banker. Cypher's Restaurant, $300, refund of overpayment. As you probably know, corporate contributions and business contributions are prohibited. So someone might see that, and the red flag goes up, and they say, "Aha, gotcha! You took a corporate contribution." The reason we call this receipts is because it's any money that's coming in. So you may have a fundraiser, and the restaurant says, I want a down payment of $1,000 before you do this thing. People come, you have food, you collect money. In the end, the bill only came to $700. So they send you a check for $300. What do you do with it? You can't take corporate contributions. Deposit it. It's a receipt. It's money coming into your campaign, but it's disclosed. As long as it's disclosed correctly, well, then it's correct. Refund of overpayment.
That's kind of why I asked that question earlier. I had all this money from a previous campaign, and I'm going to transfer it to this campaign. And so when another candidate, my opponent, sees it, he's going to say, "Look, this guy's starting off with this huge amount of money." So you've already checked those funds, so they're good funds as far as the state is concerned, as far as any office is concerned. They're not. So I don't have to say where I got it all from.
No, it would just be the starting balance I showed you before.
Right.
Slides back. That's the only number that will be seen.
That's good. But we can go through all that again.
Yes.
Under the occupation and employer, if someone is retired, is it okay just to put retired, or
Yes.
do you need more information than that?
No, retired is fine.
Okay.
Yeah, retired is good. Or homemaker, something like that. Yeah, that'd be fine. Yes.
And a company,
Mm-hmm.
which is a
be a DBA can make a donation. from
A
their
sole
company.
proprietor, yes, doing
Sole
business
proprietor.
as.
L&L Construction can,
Yeah, I'm told there aren't very many of those anymore, but yes, if you're a sole proprietor, John Smith's Pizza Shop, he doesn't have a partner, he's not organized in any way other than as a sole proprietor, then they can send a check to you on their business account, but it's really just from John Smith.
yeah,
So it'd be John Smith doing business as John Smith's Pizza.
yeah.
But your red flag should go up if you see a business check and want to look into it. Yes.
Husband and wife considered sole proprietor, or if they own the business?
That we would consider that a sole proprietor, yes, rather than a partnership, because what's owed by one spouse is owed by owned by the other.
And if in error you do collect a check like that, you just list it like the others refund and list the reason why you've refunded it. If you
A
should
check
catch
like what?
yourself, if you catch yourself taking a corporate check
Oh.
and you deposit it into
Yeah.
your account and then you realize
Yeah,
it's
our-
not okay, you just refund the money and I'm assuming write it on your report that you've refunded.
Yes,
the
if you've
money.
deposited it. If you do get a corporate check or a business check, LLC partnership, and you haven't deposited it yet, just send it back and say, hey, I can't take this on a business check. I know you're a one-person corporation, just send me a personal check. They can do that. If you've already deposited it, then yes, you would have to disclose it as a corporate contribution, and then just, as soon as you find out the error, purge that money to charity for $500, and then you're okay. Don't
You
keep
wouldn't
it.
refund the money back to the person, the corporation?
You can if it's within 90 days, if you want, but you don't have to. You can purge it to charity. Our regulations state that a prohibited contribution can be either given back to the original donor within 90 days or at any time purged to charity. I see a lot of hands. Yeah, right here. And then I'll go back.
If a husband and wife share a joint checking account, can they each say contribute $500? You know, one from one and one from the other. The checks are on the same account.
Yeah.
Is that cool?
That is fine. If you do get a check for $1,000, that's going to stick out, and it's going to be from perhaps a married couple. We would ask that both of them sign the check. If there's only one signature, we require that at least some written notation be on the check in the memo section that says, you know, half from one spouse, half from the other. Yes, sir.
Candidate's personal use of money.
That's prohibited.
Okay, itemizing that.
Yeah. You're talking about expenditures? Yes. Expenditures can't be primarily personal. Yes, sir.
I just flipped through and I didn't see any mention of in-kind donations, and I'm a little concerned about that, things like.
Yep.
Hey,
That's coming up in a couple of slides.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yep, in-kinds are coming up.
Okay.
Yep.
But a candidate can loan money to the.
Yeah, a contribution to the campaign, unlimited amounts of money.
But but he can't pay expenses out of his own. What if he pays expenses out of his own pocket, and then the campaign can reimburse him or pay him back, or?
Yes,
And that- as
either
long as it's-
reimburse or it could sit there as a liability, and we'll talk about that as well.
Okay.
So what did you mean a candidate can't do personal, you said something about candidate can't do
yes,
personal something.
Yeah, I thought that his question was about an expenditure that the campaign might make for personal purposes. So in other words, no. Okay, I thought you were asking.
Yeah, first, like a loan in your.
Oh yeah, a
or
candidate
paying
can
for
loan
signs or-
unlimited amounts of money to his or her own campaign. The personal thing I was talking about is candidates can't make expenditures for personal purposes.
Oh.
Yes.
When you say every dollar has to be reported, if it's 50 or under, then it would go in that total unitemized receipts. Is that where every
Yes.
dollar gets reported under 50?
That's correct.
Okay.
Unless you choose to disclose everything, which many candidates are doing now. Yes.
You kept saying purging to a charity. I can purge it to a nonprofit.
A nonprofit, yeah, a charity. Yep.
Just making sure that word is.
So long as
There you go.
as the officers of your campaign are not also the officers of the
Right.
charity.
That's exactly right. That's what we did.
All right. Yeah, you'll find there are exceptions and then pile on
I found every
exceptions.
exception.
Yeah.
Does that include directors, on the board of directors of the charity?
Yes, that would. A few others, $500 attorney, Lannister and Stark. I'd like to mention here, there might be times when you do get checks that are over $200 and you don't have the occupation and employer, but now it's 8 days prior to the election and you have to file the report, what do? Well, we could go back in time a little bit. If you don't have the information, the law requires you to send a letter to the donor requesting it, saying, I've got to have this for my campaign finance report, please send it to me. Now fast forward, now it's 8 days prior, you've got to take your report down to City Hall. You can put in there information requested or letter sent, that way the public at least knows you tried to get the information. At that point, you've complied with the law and you can keep the money. If at some time in the future, some point in the future that you do get the information, you can file you can file an amendment with City Hall that says, oh, here's a list of the occupations and employers for these candidates. And then here it is, the loan from the candidate himself, Joe Smith, $5,000, unlimited on the municipal level. There are limits on the state rep and state senate level if anyone's interested in those offices.
So you don't have to say that's the I mean, it must be known that that's a candidate.
Yeah, it would just be known because someone's looking at this report, so
Okay.
you know Joe Smith was the candidate.
Unlimited on the municipal level?
Unlimited, yes. Just a few other interesting, or at least one other interesting point. Minors, can you take contributions from minors? Yes, but up to $25, that would be the limit on that. And also, no raffles. Raffles are prohibited for political committees. So, no raffles, please.
And it is important because if you're running for state office, because if you're trying to get matching funds, the matching funds that we were trying to get, we didn't make it because we didn't report who this person worked for, or whatever reason balls were set in a way.
Yep. Yeah. It has to be almost perfect to get that matching funds.
Yeah, it has to be perfect.
Yep.
Not almost.
Well, so you're running for statewide office?
Not me.
Oh, you were?
I did.
Okay. Yeah, that's a little more difficult if you wanted to ever transfer that to the local level. We already talked a lot about corporate contributions, but just to reiterate, because there was a change in the law. Prior to January 1st, 2010, your committees could take LLCs, partnership, LLP contributions. There was only a ban on corporate contributions. They changed the law across the street at the State House, and now it bans just about any business check except for the sole proprietor. We see that quite often, but we also see quite often the corporate in-kind contribution. Those are also prohibited. What would this be? That would be your friend owns a restaurant, and on the side she has a function hall where she charges $1,000 a night for a wedding or a bar mitzvah or something. But for you're the friend, you can have it for free. That'd be a prohibited in-kind corporate contribution or LLC contribution. Prohibited. So the general rule is if you're getting something from a business, anything of value would have to be paid for. That also includes office space, anything like that.
Well, along that line, there's a number of in-kind donations, but for instance, someone owns a building and they donate the space for your headquarters with a normal rent of $1,200 a month or something like that. But I mean, there's no lower limit. You just can't do that.
Yeah. Great example, because this is what we come across most often. There are empty storefronts in every town. Someone may have a business, it may be organized as an LLC, the person who owns the building, and they say, I can't fill this thing, you can have it for free for 3 months, or you can pay me $200 a month for this storefront. That would be prohibited. It's something of value being given to the campaign, and so your campaign would have to pay market value for that headquarters space. If it's a sole proprietor who owns that building, they could donate the first $500, which is going to go real quick. But after that, your campaign would have to pay for it.
Right,
and that's
$500 a month. It's just flat
$500 for the year. So they could, if it's $1,000 a month, they could pay for half of your first month's rent.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
If a friend said, I've got a lot of air miles accumulated, just use them and come to see me in Florida.
But it has nothing to do with campaigning at all.
I'm a candidate, and
we would not have a problem on the campaign finance level with that. No, if you just wanted to go to Florida, ethics might have a problem with it, but not our law.
And I'm sorry, and here's one other thing that we're struggling with is, for instance, web development. If you have somebody who does web development, pretty much what we've done is our web developer stopped at $500 as an in-kind donation of using their standard rate, and everything else after above that we would have to pay. Or is that, and if this is what they do for a living, or if they do this,
if you're getting a service from a company, then
or
yes.
an individual,
from a company you'd have to pay for it. If it's an individual, if your friend works for a web developer and then on his own time he decides, I'm going to run your website. I'm going to work 2 hours a night keeping the thing up. That would be a personal service, the same as the guy who's holding the sign for you on the street corner.
So that's
no reporting requirements, and you don't have to report anything. They can donate as much time as they want. But not during company time. If they work for Google, they shouldn't work on your website during Google
So
time.
this is a freelance web designer who does this for a living, doesn't,
Yep.
and
Yep. If you're lucky enough to know someone like that, then you're able to do that.
Can I pursue that question again,
Sure.
please? What's the difference in you giving me $5,000 for a donation without me making a notation of it anyway, or you giving me air miles that are worth $5,000?
If I were to give you $5,000 for your campaign, and you were to use that for campaign purposes, and that's a contribution, an excess contribution, and a contribution that must be disclosed, and most of it purged. But if I were to give you air miles to go to Florida, it's not for a campaign purpose. You know, perhaps you're going to Florida for personal reasons, to see people. So it wouldn't fall under the campaign finance law. But if someone were to give you, let's say there was such a thing as air miles within Massachusetts, so that you could fly around from airport to airport and drop off signs and have a campaign event, we'd have a problem with that because that would be campaign related. If you were to take perhaps you got a deal to use a Cessna and to fly into various local airports and have rallies or something, that's something that would have to be paid for or disclosed.
You had the example of the restaurant where they have a like a special room that you could say this is a certain amount of money per whatever. But what about situations, and there are a lot of coffee shops or storage rooms or something where you just use a part and it's not really set aside, but they say, you say, sure, come on in and you can have your group over here because it doesn't matter, or you can store your signs over here because it doesn't matter because it's not taking up much space. So what about those kinds of things?
That would be fine because they're treating everyone the same. If they always allow groups to come in for birthday parties or graduations, and they think, you know what, we're going to make our money off the bar and off the food, then that's their usual business practice, and you can partake in that usual business practice. You wouldn't want them to pay for the food or the drinks, but if they allow space for free for everyone, then you can have it as well.
Okay. Can you fundraise within a place of business?
Yes. The prohibitions on government buildings.
Can you just touch base again on the market value of the headquarters? Because 2 years ago we had this issue, and I want to make sure that it doesn't happen again. That there was a candidate that had a headquarters, and there were some complaints filed because they felt that the candidate wasn't paying fair market value for it. The owner of the building proceeded to send in to me that this is what the fair market value is for this particular space. So that, I assume, is acceptable.
Our lawyer would probably want to see where that number came from to see whether or not it's a reasonable number.
So, all right.
Good. That comes up all the time, by the way.
Yeah.
So I don't even
I'm
those
sure.
square fronts.
As long as the guy calling you is insulting, all right?
What's that?
I said, I told her, as long as the guy calling her is insulting.
Right? That's right. In-kind contributions. These are things of value that aren't money. So if someone wants to, let's say, donate wood to your campaign, $400 worth of wood for your lawn signs, that would be a $400 in-kind contribution, and you report it on Schedule C. You'll see that on your campaign finance report. $400 from Susan Smith, wood for campaign signs. Simple as that. That's how it would be reported. There are two exceptions. We already chatted about one of them: personal services and ordinary hospitality. Personal services would be your buddy who works for Google, who maintains your website for free as a volunteer. Or perhaps you have a friend who's a lawyer. He charges $200 an hour for his legal work, but for you, he'll give you a few hours of legal work for free. That's okay. He's a volunteer. The same as the person who's stuffing envelopes or holding signs. Ordinary hospitality would be perhaps someone in the neighborhood who's very popular, has a nice backyard, and they want to invite the whole neighborhood over to hear you give a speech and have a little fundraiser. They're at the house. Now this host went out and spent money on some beer and wine and sandwiches, perhaps $150 for these 30, 40 guests that she had over. do you have to report that $150 as an in-kind contribution? We say no, you can if you want, but you don't have to, because we would consider it ordinary hospitality. In other words, if that person had 40 people at their house on a weekend, they'd spend that amount anyway on ordinary hospitality. Usually it's cookies and coffee, something like that, for a meet and greet. So that would not have to be reported. It can be reported. So why would people not want to report it? Because the in-kind contribution limit applies to the $500 limit across the board. So if someone did already give you a $150 check, and they wanted to host a little fundraiser for you in the backyard, they would otherwise not be able to provide that food and drink to those guests because they'd go over the limit. We say you don't have to worry about it. They can go over the limit, so long as it's ordinary and not extraordinary. So what's extraordinary? I guess you see it, you know it when you see it, kind of thing.
So
if they had valet
when
parking,
the house party is not the White House, you're all right.
yeah, that's right. We had a situation once where someone lived on one of the islands, Nantucket or
Right.
Martha's Vineyard, and they had valet parking, a big band, some sort of barbecue pit with expensive meats, and we said that's not very ordinary. They said, yeah, it's ordinary for here,
Right.
you know. So they said that, but you sort of know it when you see it.
So what was the outcome? Did they have to pay? Or
I
did
don't.
they get
That was
to
before
play?
that's before I got there. I don't know what the outcome is. We should ask on that. I think it was sort of done informally without any type of, letter, through a phone call. And no corporate in-kinds. We covered that. Yes, sir.
So a candidate cannot go around and solicit from restaurants and stores or markets for contributions for like a fundraising event.
They could solicit the individuals. Yep. You could solicit you could go in if you have permission. You could go in and talk to the owner and say, hey, can you give to my campaign? I'd be a good city councilor for downtown businesses or something like that. And they could give you a contribution from their personal funds.
Larger markets like Stop and Shop, that's a corporation.
If they would let you in there, I doubt it. I doubt they'd let you in there. But if you were in there and you were to see someone in the aisleway and you said, hey, can you give me a contribution? The campaign finance law wouldn't stop you from doing that. Stop and Shop might, but.
If Stop and Shop just donates $100 worth of food to candidate, can they do that?
No, that would be a corporate in-kind
corporation can't.
Yes. Or Dunkin' Donuts. We always see the Dunkin' Donuts one. A friend owns a Dunkin' Donuts, but they're all incorporated. They say, hey, I'll provide all the coffee and donuts for all your events. That would be prohibited.
So say, let's take a local restaurant here. Side Street Cafe calls us up and says, we know you're having your campaign meetings every such and such a week at such and such a time, and we would like to send up blah, blah, blah. Is that allowed or is that not allowed?
It would be allowed, if it's a corporation, LLC, or partnership, it would be allowed if you pay for it, but not receiving it for free.
Okay, so nobody can send you.
That's the legal answer. Are we ever going to find out that you received a few croissants and coffees? Probably not.
Well,
But,
you don't know this town.
yeah, but the legal answer is, the safe answer is anything from a corporation.
You're all right. The guy that loses might say something.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
A lot of single proprietors file on their subchapter
We'll
S.
just call yourself.
Is that a corporation? They're incorporated, but they're.
I don't know. If that situation comes up where you receive a check from a sub-chapter S, call our general counsel. Our lawyer will give you a green light or a red light.
But I thought you mentioned a minute ago that all businesses now under the new law come under that.
Is there something up there that contradicts that?
No, I mean earlier you said that with the new law, it's not only corporations, but all businesses.
Oh, corporations, LLCs, partnerships, partnerships, LLPs, all of those business organizations are prohibited from making any contribution to your campaigns. So what?
Single prop, so there's a distinction.
Okay, yeah, a sole proprietorship
Sole proprietor,
may give a check.
Yeah.
Right? Out-of-pocket expenditures. This is, all municipal candidates do this, and it's completely legal, and it's also the biggest way that you can screw up your reports, doing out-of-pocket expenditures. On your summary page, if you get done with your report and you see a negative number, that's wrong. It can never be negative because it's a money in, money out system. If you have a negative number, what happened was you probably somehow messed up on the out-of-pocket expenditures. As municipal candidates, you can make expenditures out of pocket for campaign purposes. That's what you're looking for?
That's what I was looking for.
Yeah, they, so let's say you do go to the Northampton Lawn Sign Company. You don't have your committee checkbook. Can you buy those lawn signs using your personal credit card? We say yes, you can do that. And you don't want to pay your campaign back right away. How would you report that? You would report that as a $500 contribution to your campaign because you spent $500 on the lawn signs. And then to balance the books would be a $500 expenditure to the Northampton Lawn Sign Company. That way it's 500 in, 500 out, it balances. If you want to get paid back someday by your campaign, you'd put it as a liability on the end. Yes?
I have family in Alabama and they wanted to do a fundraiser for me. A lot of family down there.
Yes.
How does that correlate to Massachusetts law?
Our law would apply,
Okay.
but it would only apply in saying that it's permitted. You'd have, if there's a fundraiser down, it's permitted. In order to give a contribution to a candidate in Massachusetts, the donor needs to be an American citizen or a legal alien resident, legal resident alien with a green card. All those individuals can give. I think Alabama, that's in America, so it's all good. Yep. On the other side of the Mason-Dixon, they can give.
That's what I was thinking.
The air miles. Yep, use the air miles. There you go.
miles.
Right up here.
Now that situation, yes, the air miles would count. If he used air miles to fly down to Alabama, you got me. Finally. Yeah. So if you do come across this situation and you find you're having problems with it, give us a call. We'll talk you through it. Yeah, out of pocket. Spending money. This is the easy part. Your campaigns can make expenditures to enhance your political future so long as it's not primarily personal. That's what the law states, and from that, you run your campaigns. So obviously you can buy your mailings, your lawn signs, advertisements in the newspaper, all of these things for campaign purposes to enhance your political future, get you elected. Can your campaign pay for your gas to drive around the district and shake hands? Yes, that's campaign related. It's not primarily personal. Are there important business and political people in town, and perhaps you want them on your side in the upcoming campaign? Can you take them to a fancy restaurant and spend $400 wining and dining them and use your campaign credit card or debit card? You could. You would say that that's not primarily personal. You're only doing that to enhance your political future, so that would be okay. Let's say I'm a welder and I don't have a suit, a fancy suit. Can I go and buy a suit with my campaign money and go door to door and solicit votes? We say no, you can't. We say clothing's primarily personal. I don't agree with that, but that's what my boss says, so I agree with him. So as you can see, there can be sometimes a gray area where maybe you're not quite sure which way it goes. If that's the case, give us a call and we'll give you an up or down on an expenditure. Yes?
So if somebody says to me, I'd like you to come and have dinner at a really fancy restaurant, and then we'll go out on the Connecticut River boat or something like that. Would that be considered a gift from the candidate to me as the other person, or?
If they're doing this for campaign purposes, perhaps over dinner they want to talk about legislation that they want to propose or plans for the future of the city or town, then yes. But if it's just perhaps a date or something, then no, that would be primarily personal. Yes?
Could the campaign buy the candidate a computer?
Yes, if it's used for campaign purposes, yes. Of course, there will be some personal use there from time to time, but if it's primarily a campaign computer, you'll need a computer to file reports or to fill out your reports, so yes.
So what would you do with the computer after your campaign was over with?
There is a regulation on the disposition of assets, or disposing assets. That doesn't come up very often. We tend to just say when a committee dissolves, once the money's gone, that's all we're worried about. But if you do have something of value, it's very valuable that you need to dispose of once you dissolve, give us a call and we'll walk you through it. But otherwise, a computer, and people buy computers a lot for their campaigns, and after 3 or 4 years, they're outdated and worth 50 bucks anyway. They're almost disposable nowadays. And so we probably would say, just keep the thing. Yes.
So can a person, like, offer the use of a computer throughout a campaign?
Yes, that would be just a personal service, and so you would be able to use it.
Hospitality.
Yeah, we're near hospitality. Yes.
So I need to upgrade my cell phone so I can, do the email and all that stuff. Would that be something that I can?
Yes, cell phones are paid for by campaign committees all over the state. Yes, so you could pay cell phone bills with your campaign account if it's primarily to enhance the political future of the candidate and not primarily personal. Now my boss always says, Mike says, I'm not going to look through your cell phone bills and say, oh, look you called Aunt Susan on Thursday, you owe the committee 25 cents. He's not going to bother with that. He trusts that if you have a cell phone and you're running a campaign, that you're using it primarily for campaign purposes.
Because you don't have time for anything else.
Yeah, that's right. And this is what it'll look like. It's called Schedule B, your expenditures. You can spend money at the restaurant, to buy for a fundraiser, gas for campaign travel, all these different contributions. There's a $100 contribution to Therese Murray's campaign. That's the limit, $100 from committee to committee. Also right here, the third from the bottom, reimbursement, $200 to Rick Riordan. You'll probably do a lot of these things, these reimbursements, perhaps. If you have someone in your campaign who might run out and buy something for the campaign, she comes back and she's like, all right, I spent $200, give me my money, please. Of course, you can reimburse them. There's a little bit of a process because once Rick went out and spent $200, you reimbursed them and you wrote the check to Rick, it's an expenditure to Rick, and that's the way it shows up. But the campaign finance law requires you to disclose all expenditures, and so it requires you to disclose what did Rick spend the money on. And I hope it's the next slide. It is. And so you would file something called the R1 report. It's a reimbursement report. That's on Reporter 5. And it can also be found on paper if you want to do your reports on paper. And we find that he spent $100 at Stakeholder Pizza for volunteers, and $100 for drinks and paper at Target.
How timely does Rick need to be reimbursed after he's made an expenditure?
Within 30 days, or else it'll count as a contribution to the campaign. Also, reimbursements can only be, no one can write a reimbursement check to himself or herself. So if a candidate goes out and spends $100 on food and gas at an event and says, I need the campaign to pay me back, she wouldn't want to sit down and write a check to herself to reimburse herself. It would have to be done by someone else. And this is a new part of the law. It just changed a year and a half ago because, frankly, people were stealing money, just writing checks to themselves. So they changed the law.
Your treasurer could write a check.
Yeah,
yes,
that's what they do.
Yeah, so long as an individual is not writing a check to himself or herself.
Okay, an individual can't be your own treasurer, can you?
You cannot. So if reimbursements are going to happen, there usually needs to be 2 signatories on the checking account. Yes.
What if it's reimbursing the treasurer?
And the candidate would sign it, or another person authorized to sign checks.
You flew through the yard signs. I got a ton of yard signs that I used in the last campaign.
Yes.
And so there's no way of, there's appreciation. I could just keep using them.
That's right. Yep. Just
never
keep
have
using
to report them. I never have to report them.
That's right.
So I don't have to re-report the yard signs. I'm already ahead of my candidate because he never ran for office. And I have those lawn signs left over, and I don't have to report those at all.
That's correct. And you reuse the signs.
Unless you sell them.
For fun.
You're saying there's a new form out for reimbursing, like if I go out and buy pizzas, I'm the treasurer of this campaign, I go out and buy pizzas, okay? That's one thing, but if I have John Doe go out and buy pizzas and he pays with his own money and I gotta write him a check, that should be on a new form?
You write the check on your committee check, and it's not a new form, it's actually an old form. It's called the R1 form, it's a reimbursement form. That way you can itemize what he spent the money on.
Well, we get a standard form that comes in, it's been coming in for the last many years, and it's 4-sided. So it must be a 5th side.
That's the 102 form. No, this is a separate piece of paper where you would
and where do we get those?
you can get them online on our website.
So
the city clerk would probably have them.
Okay.
If she doesn't, then she can get them, or she can print it off for you at the office. I can show you where those forms are.
What do you call that form?
The R1 form. I mean, as long as we're talking about it, can I just show you where our forms are located? If you go to our website, this is what our website looks like. If it comes up.
I'm gonna make my wife do it. What's the URL again?
www.mass.gov/OCPF.
Thank you.
This is our website. All of our forms are online. If you look on the left-hand side, there's a stack of options in light blue right in the middle, forms and publications. I've highlighted it right there. You hit that, oh, and here they are. These are all our forms. The CPF 101, you filed an M101 to organize your campaigns. Those are the first ones listed. Down here are your campaign finance reports. The M102, which is right here, that's your main report. That's the one you're going to file before your preliminary, before your election, and at the year end. We recommend, of course, that you download our software and do it that way, but if you want to do it this way, you can. There's also an editable. These are now editable, not editable, but editable. When you click this, you can print it off and use it in handwrite, or you can type right into the thing. So that way it's clean when the clerk posts it to the website. Yes?
I want to make a clarification between a reimbursement to a candidate for an expenditure and the reimbursement if they make a loan to the campaign. That they're not considered the same thing in terms of the timeline for reimbursement.
Correct. So let's say you did go spend $500 on lawn signs today, and 2 weeks from now the candidate is reimbursed $500 for those lawn signs. That would not be considered a liability. It would be reported differently. It would be reported as the way we reported it before, an expenditure to the candidate and a reimbursement form detailing what that reimbursement was for.
And if a candidate loaned his campaign, say $1,000, that can be paid back at any time after the campaign?
Correct. Yep. Sometimes liabilities, we have candidates in our office, those liabilities that's owed to the candidate have been sitting there 20, 25 years, a long time.
And so in other words, if I'm running for office and I want to go take out a $20,000 loan and give it to my campaign, can I do that?
Sure. You can. There are some very specific regulations on borrowing money from a bank for your campaign. So if you're going to do that, you'll want to call the office and talk to an auditor or the general counsel. They'll just talk you through the specific steps on how to do that.
What if I got 20 grand buried in the backyard?
It's your money. Yep, you can throw it right into your campaign. Yep. If you're the candidate.
What's your name?
I was buried in my own
Yes, sir.
backyard.
This is the R1 form. When you want to look at it, this is the R1 form, and that's where you would file your reimbursements.
I want to know where the money buried in their backyard was reported to the IRS.
I want to know
There you
who
go.
left.
And this is it, the name of the individual being reimbursed, and then this is where you would itemize all the expenditures. So that's the R1 form.
So what happens if you do something in an untimely fashion because you didn't know and then you find out? How do you do that?
Yeah, this happens from time to time. Just try and disclose it as fast as possible. A lot of times, especially on the municipal level, your clerks will work with you. And I know that Mike Sullivan, the director of my agency, he likes just memos where you might sit down and explain the situation in memo form, print it off, sign it, and just put it in your public file. That way, if someone goes and looks, they'll just see, oh, it's fully explained right there. Everything's disclosed and in the open. There's transparency that way. Or your clerk might say, no, let's do it by the book. I would like you to refile the report with an amendment, and you'd fill out everything and file a proper amendment. If the clerk wants to do it that way, then that's the way it should happen as well.
So you check with the city clerk
Yes,
then about...
your city and town clerks are your campaign finance kings and queens. We just administer the law, but they make sure all the disclosure happens.
So when Mike, that's the 4 to 6 week thing you was talking about.
Yeah.
So when Mike Sullivan gave me a call telling me that, Rick, you've been reported for this, because, whatever, I was the guy that lost, I'm not the guy that lost. corporation that we lost. So he just asked me what I had to say about it. I didn't have to send him any written. The guy that reported it said that was solid grapes. Wrote him a big letter saying, check this
Sometimes
out.
that'll happen. They'll have a conversation with
That's
you.
all my kid was call me and
Yeah.
have a conversation. He said, well,
Yeah.
we'll get back to you if we need you again.
Yeah, that was and that was in that specific situation of dealing with a legal case,
Right.
rather than perhaps someone I forgot to put on that $200 contribution and we
No.
already reported. That's sort of your question, right? Now what do? I didn't report that $200 I had. You know, you could go back and probably amend the report or send a letter and say, I also had this contribution.
Well, also, I'm thinking in terms of people who are doing this job for the first time, and there's so much to learn that if you find a regulation after the fact, then that's what I was talking about.
Okay, yes. We're certainly not a gotcha agency at all. Our focus is education and working with you for proper disclosure. As you'll see, the sort of individuals who might get in more serious trouble are stealing money, or are total disregard for the campaign finance law. They'll take in 20 grand and not report it, and just go on with their lives and go to the Red Sox game, that sort of stuff. Usually will get someone in more trouble, rather than municipal candidates trying to do it right. Perhaps they might mess up here and there. We just work with people.
Or own a chain of convenience stores and give as much to the campaign as they want.
Who are you talking
Oh,
about?
I'm not talking about anybody.
Can I just ask a question on the liabilities? If a candidate has, a candidate ran and he had liabilities on his campaign finance report and he just didn't win, that he has to continue to file as long as there's liabilities sitting there?
Even
But
someone
he
who
has a
loses.
right to, doesn't he have a right to say that they're forgiven?
That's right. So if a campaign, unfortunately you lose, and there are liabilities there, you would continue to file reports with the clerks until such time as the liability is gone. And you can forgive a liability to yourself. So if the campaign owes you $2,000 and you don't want to mess with it anymore, you can forgive that liability, dissolve the campaign, and then you're free from future filing responsibilities. Yes.
Hi, I have a county-wide race, and I just opened my committee on May 13th. My treasurer was at the Springfield.
Okay.
And our question from her attending is that when we opened my account, we got a Visa debit card. And now I was told that I can't use it as a debit card, but if I do a point of sale and I purchase something, and if I run it through as credit, that's okay?
No. Debit cards are completely prohibited by county candidates. Even ones that say Visa or MasterCard.
So I can't use
Yes.
it.
I know it's a pain in the butt. Now let's just clear things up real quick. Municipal candidates, we're here from Northampton, Chicopee, Holyoke, West Springfield. You can use your debit cards. That's okay. It's the county candidates and state candidates who are prohibited from using. They're in a different system.
Why is that?
They're in a different system called the depository system, and the law states that expenditures can only be made on check or credit card. They don't include debit cards. I think they should be able to use it, but the law doesn't allow them to. So yeah, debit cards out the window, cut them up. Don't use them on the county level. The municipal level, go for
So
it.
I was a state candidate, and I have all this money in this account that still needs to transfer to the municipal level. And we had debit cards, and we had everything that we were allowed to as state candidates. So do I dissolve that account and open up a new account with a new name, a new committee name?
That's up to you. You can keep the same account, but just you would file a form that would stop the bank from reporting. This is a different system. The bank reports their expenditures
That's right.
monthly or fortnightly.
That's correct.
They would no longer report, so you would want to cut that off. But you can still use the same account if the bank allows you to.
Just change the name to it.
Just change, not even change the name really. Just keep on going.
Okay,
Unless it says your name.
The business card has to be leavers.
Yeah. You can change your business card, but does your committee check say committee to elect someone for state treasurer?
Yeah.
Okay, then
Not
you want to
state
change
treasurer,
that.
but it was a
You want to
different
change
one. It was
that.
a higher
Yep.
level than that. Oh.
Yeah. So you want to change that. So
Yeah,
on the depository level, sorry, no debit cards.
Essentially, if there's anything but a zero balance in your account, you have to keep reporting, right?
That's right, keep reporting. And all incumbents as well, even if you have a zero balance, you would have to file something with the city that says, I either didn't raise money or I raised this much and this is what it was. So if you're an incumbent, always file. If you have any type of balance and you haven't disclosed, you haven't dissolved or you have a liability, then you file. These are the liabilities. Yes?
Am I allowed to have a petty cash account?
A what?
A petty cash account, because this is where we're having
Oh.
trouble, is trying to get checks and reimbursements and stuff.
It's a
like
pain on the depository level because no one really takes checks anymore. And sometimes it's difficult to get a credit card, which you can have for a depository account. You have to work within those confines. Now, cash under 50, if the candidate needs like $50 because they're going to have a coffee or something and they just want to buy donuts, they can do that. A candidate can write a check. The treasurer can write a check to the candidate, have it cashed, and have that $50 petty cash. But not huge amounts of money sitting
But
around.
there's a limit of $50.
Yep. Because any expenditure over 50 must happen on your credit card or your checking account. So having petty cash around won't really do you much good as far as spending money on the big money items.
So I'm going to have lots of checks being reimbursing me, basically.
Yeah. Well, and this is the catch. Reimbursements are limited to her campaign, not to yours. Reimbursements are limited to $50. So you're really hamstrung.
So I can't pay for my signs up front out of my own.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, depository system is very strict. It's difficult. It was written in the early 90s or late 80s before everything. Just about now you have to buy everything online or using credit cards at stores and different things. It's difficult.
And you don't have the authority to change it.
No, I don't. No. The guys across the street and ladies do.
Couldn't she just loan herself money through her campaign and use that money to write her sign checks and so forth until she
Well, yeah, she can
builds up
loan money to the campaign, but it
Right.
has to go through her checking account. So she's in the same predicament. She has to buy signs. She still has to write a check or use the committee credit card, no debit card. Yeah. Like Mitt Romney, very wealthy man, he poured money into his campaign account, but it all went through his campaign account. And there was another candidate who ran for governor a year ago, very wealthy man. He decided just to run his campaign off to the side and didn't run everything through the account. And a case was opened with us, and he had to pay $70,000 as a fine, a penalty. Yeah, the convenience store. Yep. I thought I saw a hand. Yep.
Well, we did a campaign event, and there's a number of places that do take checks. Stop and Shop will take a check. Ask whoever you're getting the service from ahead of time if they'll take a check, and a lot of people do.
Yeah, checks can
And
be written
it
here and
comes
there.
right out of the account. It's like you use the debit card, like it's Stop and Shop.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so people do take checks here and there. So
there's no clearance.
Where you find
just like
problems,
that.
where you find problems probably, man, with the county campaign. No, it's all right. I was just going to tell you where you might find problems is with the postage, right? Is that where you're having problems? You can't write a check to the post office.
My treasurer lives. I'm in Amherst. She's in Belchertown, and she works in Springfield. So it's like, okay, my balance. I got $400 in my account. I can go buy a sign.
Yeah.
And I've got to,
Okay.
I gotta wait for
I
her to
understand.
send me a check.
Just communicate with your auditor if you're having any problems. That way, if you are doing something that might be a little irregular or something, or goes outside the bounds just a little bit,
Yeah, so I mean, I'm
you work with the
constantly
auditor and they
shelling
log
out
your call.
200 here and 200 out of my own account and waiting.
Okay, I understand. So these are the liabilities. This is where if you loan money to your campaign, you'll put this here. That way, that you can get paid back someday. It's also where you put unpaid bills. So if you do go to the Worcester Button Company and you get those 600 campaign buttons and you wear them in the parade, everyone knows you have them. But then they look on your report, they may not see an expenditure because you didn't get the bill and you didn't pay for it yet. For disclosures purposes, you would disclose unpaid bills and liabilities as well. Anyone here running for mayor in cities between 40 and 100? Yeah, so you'll file with us, and these are the reporting dates, so you have those dates there. Resolving cases, we spoke about this a lot, but late fines, a campaign can be fined up to $25 a day, up to $5,000. On the mayoral level and on the state rep, state senate level, it's automatic, $25 a day. It's just an automatic system. On the municipal level, it's a little different, but the moral of the story is just file on time to avoid the possibility of these fines. How else do we resolve cases? We resolve them through public resolution letters, disposition agreements, and referrals to AG. A public resolution letter, it's more of the informal letter where we say, okay, so you did take 5 corporate contributions, you deposited them, you didn't disclose, you didn't purge them, but you now have purged them. You have been educated. Let's move on. We put those on our website, and they can sometimes result in news stories. The disposition agreement, that's where it's a little more serious. You'll come into our office, sign a legal agreement where you usually forfeit a large amount of money to the state, and then we move on. There's also referral to the AG. This is a criminal statute, so it can be referred to the AG for criminal charges. That happens very rarely. The last time a guy went to jail was a couple of years ago. He stole more than $100,000 from his campaign. So it's those sorts of issues that are sent to the Attorney General. We can talk about OCPF Online because many of you might want to download Reporter 5, and I can do this quickly. There's also Web Reporter for anyone who might file with us. If you're a mayoral candidate in cities between 40 and 100,000, or state rep, state senate, statewide, county, you can use Reporter 5 or Web Reporter. All candidates can use Reporter 5 on the municipal level. And I'll show you how you would do that. You would go to the front page of our website. You've seen this. I already called it up. And if you go right here to download Reporter 5, you can click that button, and it'll take you through various steps on how to download Reporter 5 onto your computer. Apple computers do not support Reporter 5. Sorry. It's going too soon.
How about the web?
No, and that's why I have these screenshots. I can't call it up.
And you can't show it up.
Does the web reporter, is that supported by Mac?
That's supported by Mac,
That's-
yes.
But municipal candidates can't use
Would
that?
not use that, no. I know our IT person is going to make Web Reporter available to all candidates because we think that's the way to go. From any computer anywhere, you can log on to Web Reporter, put in your password and email address, password and ID number, and file. Yes, sir.
I've been asking a lot of questions about transferring funds from one campaign to another. You didn't bring any forms with you, did you?
No forms. So after you download Reporter 5, you'll see a little blue icon on your screen. That's Reporter 5. It'll just sit there on your home page, and you can click on that and call it up. And this is what it'll look like. These are all the receipts, and you would go through, and as your checks come in, you could you'll put in the date, the amount, first, last name. If it's over $200, you'll add the occupation as employer, and they'll just pile up for years. They'll just sit there and pile up as you win and as money comes in, and those will just sit there. That'll be a database. You will not have to. You won't have to do anything other than input the name and address. And where do you find these things? You find them by going here to Schedules. It says Schedules. You hit Schedules, and it drops down Receipts, Expenditures, In-Kind Contributions, Liabilities. That's where you'd find something like that, and you can type that in. This is where you would type in your expenditures, all the vendors, as you spend money from your campaign. Now it's time to file or create your report, so you can file it with the town clerk or with OCPF, depending on your filing responsibility. The thing you want to do is go to Create, that button right there, and hit Create, because you always want to create the report. When you create the report, it's going to have a date parameter, and it's going to go in and collect all the information in between those dates. So we created a report. It's going to ask you what type of report. Your first report is going to be a pre-primary or preliminary report. This one's a pre-election. We touch pre-election, and you say next. And this is the important part where you would put in the dates, the date parameter for the reporting period, and the beginning balance. Once you create the report, it's going to sit there in this little white box. To file it, you want to highlight the report that you want to file or print off to hand into the clerk. And you would print it, sign it, hand it to the clerk, and they'd post it to the website.
So you need Wendy needs hard copy?
Yes.
You can't send like a PDF file or a version of this?
I know we would prefer the original with the signature on it. Yes. Yes.
So I have a person who sets up the spreadsheet with when they receive the checks and makes the deposits. Now, can her spreadsheet be downloaded, or she has to re-enter everything?
She would re-enter.
Yeah.
Our system designed, though, as its own database, so Excel is not necessary. It would not have to be used. at all for these reporting requirements.
But you can't transfer from the existing Excel file.
You can, it's just an added step. If she already entered it into Excel, there is a way to transport Excel into a program,
Okay.
but it's not necessary. So if she's already done it, she can call up her IT department and they'll talk her through the transfer of data.
So if I was doing it on a Mac, I could email that Excel from IBM and then go into it, right?
Yes, you could. Okay. All right. and that's all, unless there are any additional questions. Yes.
I have a question about auctions. I know you said there were no to raffles, but I remember reading something in there, and I think it was someone basically asking that question on your website. And as long as I understood it, it was like it could be a piece of art that I made that was donated to the campaign and then auctioned off. Does that seem reasonable?
Yes, auctions are okay. However, no one can ever auction more than $500 for an item because that would be an excess contribution. But yes, auctions would be okay. It would be an in-kind contribution from you of a piece of jewelry, might be worth $200 or something, and then the $200 that someone paid for the item.
So you actually have to report it both ways?
Yes, you have to report a cash contribution or a monetary contribution from the person who bought your jewelry.
As in
but then you made it, yes.
And then as it got bought out.
Yes.
But, I'm sorry, along that line, if I'm the candidate and I generate that art, do I have to report that as an income?
And you generated what?
And I generated the art that gets auctioned.
Oh.
To
be safe, yes. But you can donate unlimited in-kind contributions to your campaign.
So just register, assign a value to it, and then.
That's right. Usually the value would be whatever the price was paid on it. But yeah, you could sell your couch, your TV, everything out of your house to pay for it. Yes.
Could it be donations from businesses? For instance, like say Pinch Pottery in downtown, they make pottery and sell it, and they
only
want
if
to
it's a
donate.
sole proprietor.
Okay.
Yes, and then that would be reported as an in-kind. But if it's not, if it's a partnership or something like that, it would have, your campaign would have to pay for it initially. Yes.
Candidate decides not to run in a couple of years and he has thousands of dollars left in his campaign fund. What can he do or what must he do with this money?
Yes, the remaining balance after a candidate stops running, it would have to be either donated to. You'd have to have a zero balance to dissolve, and to get it to zero balance, the money can be donated to a charity, a scholarship fund, or the state or a municipality to get to the zero balance.
You can't go to Florida.
No, no Florida.
What about to another candidate?
Yes, yes, your campaign could donate to other campaigns or it could donate to charity here and there, so long as the candidate says, I have a political future, I want to run for office in the future. We can't read minds, so they can say whatever they want. For example, there was the former governor, Jane Swift. I don't want to talk out of school, tell tales out of stool, but she left office and she had a ton of money. And for a year or two, or whatever the amount of time was, she was still running around spending money, helping John McCain try to become president. She said that's going to enhance my political future. If he wins, perhaps I'll, gain higher office or something. Something like that. So, so even once you leave office, you can make political expenditures so long as you think you might run. Unless you're dissolving, then it goes to charity, usually.
Can he transfer this money to another candidate?
No, only up to $100. Yes.
What about a silent auction at a is that okay? I mean, so you can put out items, they can't be donated by a business, but they could be donated by your friends or, and then you can have a silent auction and that's okay?
That's okay, yes.
Okay.
Yep, that's okay. Is there a hand back there somewhere? All right. I'm available if anyone wants to chat with me about anything. I'll be breaking down. Please feel free.
You've been very helpful.
Thank
All right,
you.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Northampton, for having Hoya.
What's your, that's right. What's your cell phone number?
No turnpike.
You can have it if you want. I give it to all the reporters.